The title refers to a weaker output of energy, linking the two films in the exhibition to each other. The explosion is the opposite of a glow in terms of afterglow or like a diminished amount of strength of light or fire. But also in the close we have an effect of afterglow because we are looking at a film that tells something about the history of cinema and movie making, but it does so from a perspective of after the life of movie making. Stillness in film is associated to the end of life, the end of animation. At the same time, it's also associated to the absence of sound. The stillness in the exploding birdcage is limited to birdsong. I use animals, elements that belong to the background of the image. And the backdrop is interesting because it doesn't have a voice, it doesn't have a political voice. It functions as a witness. I find it liberating to give, to give the foreground or the main role as a protagonist to that part of the world which never really gets any attention. And those will usually be the trees that stand behind, at the edge of an image, or there might be the wind, or it might be anything, or birds in that case. The two films that we have in the exhibition, I think what they really do have in common is that the absence of sound, it's done in a different way. We're in the middle of an explosion. We see the screaming birds at one point in close-up, and that's exactly when there's no beep around. And what I'm trying to look for there is probably for something, a silence that works spatially, that works together with the image into amplifying the absence of sound. In The Close, it's almost the other way around. We are seeing recreated footage from the early stages of the moving image, when film was still technically mute, and I wanted to use this muteness that we take for granted when we look at old footage and to bring it together with this soundtrack. Collectively, we're slowly getting used to the idea that none of the images really is authentic. They all are representations. And whether they're produced using CGI or using a film camera doesn't really matter. They are, we start looking at them as proposals. Proposals that almost have a painterly quality to them. And where we are in time, we are losing this necessary link to the world out there, and that at least someone has witnessed it, or a device, the camera, has witnessed the world out there. This is something we're gradually saying goodbye to. When we look at the birdcage, in fact, the film has entirely been filmed with a digital camera before we started to replace aspects of the camera with computer-generated imagery. What's left in many of the scenes is really only the behavior of the camera, but nothing of the information that the camera has registered. So this all puts into question the authenticity of any image.